Are mutual funds alternative investments? The simple answer is no, but let's talk about why and what are alternative investments. Okay, so you're probably asking yourself, are mutual funds alternative investments? What are they exactly? The answer is absolutely not. They are not alternative investments because stocks, bonds, and mutual funds are not. They're more the mainstream, they're more Wall Street investments, but not alternative investments. But let's talk about what those alternative investments actually are. All right, so let me talk about mutual funds because, like I said, they're not alternative investments, right? They are stocks, bonds, mutual funds. They're all the mainstream stuff that you get from financial advisors. Now, when I was a financial advisor almost 25 years ago, I thought this was really the only way you invested. The only way to make money was to stuff money in your 401ks, your IRAs for retirement for someday, right? Maybe you did some creative insurance strategy, but for the most part, other than annuities and stuff, that was it. I mean, it was really like this. I kind of describe financial advising like Mexican food. Now, I love good Mexican food. I just had it yesterday. Hopefully you can't hear it right now, but I just had it yesterday, and I love Mexican food. But let's be honest, when we look at the menu, right, we open it up, and maybe it's those Spanish words might be a little bit difficult for you if that's not your first language, but you're looking at these menu and you're like, hey, what's this? They're like, yeah, so that's a tortilla with some beans and meat wrapped inside of it and smothered with cheese and sauce on top. Okay, cool. What's this burrito thing? It's basically a tortilla wrapped with things inside of it with beans, cheese, and stuff on top. Okay. What's this taco? Oh, that's different than burrito because instead of wrapping it, you just leave it open and then you put beans and cheese and stuff inside of it. It's all the same stuff. Enchiladas? Yeah, same thing, you just smother with a different sauce. So I'm really just eating the same ingredients, just depending on how I want it packaged, right? Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's exactly what financial advisors do. They package the same stuff between insurances and mutual funds and they offer to you. Maybe it's stocks or bonds, but really that's just the mainstream kind of stuff that you see. But that's not the only things that you do have. Because again, mutual funds, they're not even they're not even investing in stocks. I mean, you have stocks as part of that fund that's in there. But remember, a mutual fund has its own price. Based on how people buy and sell that specific mutual fund will affect the mutual fund price, the gains or the losses. And so remember this, even though the stocks could make a slight money, maybe they go flat inside that portfolio, if a bunch of people sell off that mutual fund, you could actually lose money. This is why 85% of mutual fund money managers do not even equal what the stock market does. Because whether they're picking stocks or not, even picking the right ones, and because there's fees and everything else, you factor that in, you really don't make much. Alternative investments is saying, how do I take control of my money? I don't need a financial advisor for alternative investments. I can invest myself. By the way, did you know if you have 401ks and IRAs, you can roll over what's called a self-directed IRA, and there invest in whatever you want with a few exceptions. You can actually do that. You can actually invest in alternative investments even with your IRA. You don't need a financial advisor to do that. You don't need a money manager to do that. You can actually pick where you put that money. Alternative investments usually fall in the other categories. Understand there's 4 asset classes. There's paper assets. This is the one you usually are told about. These are stocks, bonds, mutual funds, options. Even things like life insurance is considered a paper asset, right? You have all those things. Almost everything you've been taught about, annuities, everything's a paper asset. The second one would be business. Business is when you're actually investing in a business, not the stock, the business itself. This is where private equity and money can go in. This can be your own business. Business is definitely its own asset class. Then there's also things like real estate. We know about real estate, but it's not just buying a property. You could be doing other things, and we'll talk about those too. And then there's commodities. Commodities is the fourth one. Commodities is like your gold, your silver, your oil, all those kind of things, right? Even people might argue that cryptocurrency could be more of a commodity, although it's a little bit debatable. That one's more in the paper asset realm. But yes, that could actually be potentially an alternative investment that is a commodity at some point. I just don't think it's there yet. So that's what commodities are. Commodities are usually based on some real asset, not digital, but more of a real asset that you can make money off of. Now, that being said, how do we invest in these alternative investments, right? What are those options? Now, I'm going to focus more on the real estate side because business, you can invest in business. It doesn't have to be your own. You could invest in somebody else's business. You can invest in a franchise. You can literally invest in owning a franchise, but then have somebody else manage it for you. Then you're kind of you're not really passive, you're more semi-active in that sense. But you could actually be putting your money into a fund, like a syndication, where you pool your money with other investors and then go invest in like a car wash business. So you can actually have money in business-related things that aren't necessarily real estate. Now, they can be more speculative, they can be higher risk, but there's definitely a lot more growth potential too. Now, real estate is anything that has real estate as a backing. This is not just, like I said, buying your neighbor's house next door or even across town, right? This is somewhere where you can buy real estate anywhere, literally across the world. Most of the time, I just tell people we're US focused, focus on the US. There's so many markets and submarkets here. You really don't even need to look outside the US for all the variety we have. But you could be buying things that could be a rental, but maybe it's a turnkey rental. Maybe it's a turnkey rental that's being property managed by somebody else on the other side of the country. I live in the western half of the United States. I'll tell you, rentals stink out here. But I can go buy a property out in the Southeast or the Midwest and make a lot more money with this lower price. You know, I can still make good rent. I can make good profit off that property. So I can do that, but then I don't have to be there. I can have a property manager take care of it on site, with boots on the ground over there. So I can do stuff like that. I can also invest my money in apartment buildings, like I mentioned, pool my money with other investors to buy an apartment building. Could be self-storage units where you don't have to deal with the tenants, the toilets, and the trash, right? You can do that kind of stuff. You can actually invest in things such as industrial space, right? Especially as people are building more with warehouses, Amazon type warehouses, things like that. You can actually buy into industrial space, which, by the way, in the last couple of years, even though apartment buildings got hurt so badly, but in the space when it comes to industrial, they weren't touched at all. They were just fine. So you can do things like that. It could be commercial office buildings. It could actually be raw land, literally dirt. You could buy dirt, yet cash flow well, right? You can do things like that. I literally have a business partnership that I have where we actually buy and sell raw land, buy it wholesale, sell it retail, and then they pay us monthly mortgage payments to us with interest over time. I'm making over 20% a year just doing that kind of thing. So there's so many things. I can even lend my money to real estate investors doing any of these strategies. I lend the money to them, they contractually have to pay me back. Now, of course, if they don't, then if I have any kind of collateral, I could take and claim that collateral. Just like a bank will, if you don't pay your mortgage payment and they'll take the house from you, I could do the same thing from an investor if I'm actually on title. Again, there's a lot of people that do lending stuff that don't have that option, so be sure you're careful what you're picking. But there's so many options in the real estate space. Heck, I even do things with oil and gas, where we own the land. Anything pulled out of the ground is literally, we get to share in the royalties, the profits that come from that. So we make money off of pulling out natural gas and oil and things like that. And again, I get paid on that. So those things, I can do so much in the real estate space that I really don't need a lot more outside of it. In fact, looking at stocks, bonds, and mutual funds, to me, it's kind of a joke now because those are high risk, mediocre returns when it comes to mutual funds. But I can create lower risk, managed risk with some of my real estate and get higher, more certain returns. And it's not just about the returns, guys, because here's the thing. If you invest in mutual funds, you're only supposed to pull out maybe 2 or 3% a year, not 4 unless you're in your 70s. That's too much. But 2 or 3% a year you can pull out. But I can do the same thing. I can make at least 10% a year on my real estate, and I'm literally getting income of over 10% a year. I'm making at least triple or quadruple whatever I'd be getting from mutual funds. So I can get my money working so much harder in alternatives. And like I said, I've had so many people ask this, like, wait, can I use my 401k or my IRA? Yes, you can't use the 401k at your job right now, but you can roll your money into what's called a self-directed IRA and then invest in any of these things. Now, there are some restrictions, there's different rules and whatnot. That's not the video for it. I've done other videos on that. But I'll tell you this, is that you can do so much more alternatives, so much more than what you can do with mutual funds. So if you're looking for alternative investments, you're looking for those options, I'd recommend this. And subscribe to our channel here and start watching our podcast where we actually do bring on people that are doing these different types of strategies, these alternative investments outside of Wall Street, outside of mutual funds. You can actually do so many more things that the whole world, when it opens up to you, when you start to see it like I did in 2006 and it blew my mind what was possible, that's what allowed me to become financially independent later that year, because I was able to get my money to work harder for me instead of me having to work so hard trying to slave and save away for that money. So be sure to go subscribe to our channel today.